Everything changed in Umuagu village one morning. The villagers rose with the sun, moving through their daily routines, women balancing pots on their heads, children chasing one another in laughter, fishermen pushing their nets into the river on their wooden boats, vanishing slowly into the mist. Life seemed ordinary, peaceful. Then, it happened. Like a flash, the river erupted, spray exploding, boats buckling as if struck by an unseen creature. A scream pierced the morning air, sharp and desperate, then cut short as one fisherman was dragged beneath the waves. Gone, in a heartbeat. But that was only the beginning. What rose from the depths of the River Orashi that day would haunt Umuagu forever. The death on River Orashi cast a heavy shadow over Umuagu. By midday, the marketplace buzzed with whispers instead of laughter. Women drew their wrappers tighter, muttering prayers as they traded. Men shook their heads gravely, recalling how the fisherman's scream still echoed in their ears. But while fear kept most indoors, Izzana refused to cower. He sat on the edge of his wooden canoe, sharpening the blade of his paddle with calm, steady strokes. The young fisherman was known across Umuagu for his strength and boldness. His skin was dark and sun-kissed from long days on the water, his shoulders broad, his beard kept neat though always shadowed by a stubborn jawline. His eyes, sharp and restless, never seemed to lower before anyone. Fishing was more than his work, it was his lifeline. Izzana had inherited his canoe from his late father, who drowned in the same river years ago under mysterious circumstances. While others whispered that it was the curse of River Orashi, Izzana carried a different truth in his heart. He believed his father was simply claimed by the dangers of nature, not spirits. Since then, he had sworn to master the river, to prove that no ghost or goddess ruled his fate. But to the villagers, his refusal to bow to tradition was arrogance. Recklessness. The elders gathered beneath the great Udala tree, their faces stern. Elder Nwachukwu, the oldest among them, raised his staff and spoke with the authority of time. The gods have given their warning, he declared. The spirit of River Orashi is restless. We must close the river for 7 days, offer kola and goat, and pray for peace. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. But Izzana's jaw tightened. He rose to his feet, his voice cutting through the hush. 7 days of hunger. 7 days of fear. What if this is no spirit, but just the river taking its due? Must we tremble forever at shadows? Gasps erupted. No one challenged the elders so openly. Elder Nwachukwu's eyes narrowed. Young man, your tongue is sharper than your wisdom. Do not mock what you do not understand. But Izzana held his ground. If the spirit is real, then I will face it. If it is a lie, then I will prove it. Either way, this village will know the truth. From the crowd, Ozimar stepped forward, her face pale with worry. She had grown up with Izzana, knew the fire that burned in him, and feared it would consume him. Izzana, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Don't do this. You are not fighting the river, you are fighting what lives inside it. What if you cannot win? He met her gaze, softer now, though no less determined. Then let the river take me. But I will not live my life in chains of fear. The marketplace fell silent. Some muttered that he was cursed for his defiance. Others whispered that perhaps he was chosen by the gods. But one thing was certain. That night, while the village barred its doors in trembling silence, Izzana would push his canoe into the waters of River Orashi. And the river was waiting. Umuagu had once been the kind of village where peace flowed as steadily as the River Orashi itself. Morning drums woke the farmers, women's laughter filled the streams, and children ran barefoot across the dusty paths without fear. At night, moonlight spilled over the thatched roofs as families gathered around fires, telling stories older than the oldest elder. Life moved in a rhythm, predictable, simple, safe. The river was not just water to them, it was life. It fed the fishermen, watered the yam fields, and carried the songs of the paddlers far into the mist. The people of Umuagu greeted the river like kin, offering kola and palm wine before casting their nets. No one imagined it could ever turn against them. But all that was before the first scream. Before the waters foamed red. Now, the river sat like a wound on the land, silent, watching. Mothers pulled their children away from its banks. Fishermen whispered prayers instead of songs. Even the birds that once circled above seemed to avoid it. The peace of Umuagu had cracked, and fear seeped into every household. Whispers began to rise again, old stories the elders had buried. They spoke of an albino maiden, born generations ago, whose beauty unsettled both men and spirits. It was said she had drowned under mysterious circumstances, but the river did not keep her in death. Instead, it twisted her into something monstrous, a mermaid that lured men with her beauty, then devoured them once she transformed into a silver fish of impossible size. And so, as they had done in times past, the elders decreed a sacred rite of 7 days. For 7 days, the drums of Umuagu fell silent. No food was cooked, no water drawn, no laughter heard. The villagers were forbidden to eat or drink until the river spoke. Only palm leaves were tied around their waists, and ashes smeared on their foreheads. The children wailed with hunger, their cries echoing through the night, but the people dared not break the fast. Every dawn, the elders went to the riverbank carrying kola nuts, white cock, and palm wine, chanting incantations into the mist. They waited for the river's voice. Sometimes it asked for the blood of a goat, sometimes for a new baby born in the village, sometimes for a virgin girl. Whatever the demand, the people obeyed. Better one life than the destruction of us all, Elden Kem always said, his wrinkled hands trembling as he leaned on his staff. But behind the obedience, bitterness festered. Mothers clutched their infants tighter, fathers hid their daughters, yet no one spoke against the right. Fear held their tongues. The river had become their master, and the elders its priests. No one dared say aloud what weighed heavily on every heart, that the right brought nothing but suffering, that the river never stopped taking, that each sacrifice only bought silence for a while before blood stained the waters again. No one, except Izzana. That night, as the hunger of the fast gnawed at his stomach, Izzana sat alone in his hut, staring into the flicker of a dying flame. The cries of children echoed faintly in the distance, but louder still was the river's roar in his mind. He could no longer bear it. This endless cycle of sacrifice, fear, and silence was no way to live. His father had been claimed by the river, and still the elders demanded more lives. Izzana's jaw tightened, his broad shoulders squared as if bracing for war. No more, he muttered into the dark. If the river wants blood, let it take mine. But I will not sit and watch it devour Umuagu. His decision was made. He would go into the river himself, to face whatever spirit haunted its depths and demand answers. But word of his stubbornness reached Ozimar before he could act. She came quietly to his hut, her wrapper clutched tightly around her slender frame, her eyes shining with something more than fear. She had always been close to him since childhood, she the healer's daughter, gentle yet sharp-tongued, he the daring fisherman who never bowed to rules. In the silence of the night, her voice trembled, though she tried to sound firm. Izzana, don't be foolish. Do you think you are stronger than the river? Stronger than the curse, she whispered. He looked at her, her face lit by the faint glow of the hearth. She was beautiful in a way Umuagu never truly saw. Her beauty was not loud, but steady, like water that could cut through stone if given time. And though she masked it with scolding, her eyes betrayed her heart. Ozimar had loved Izzana for as long as she could remember. But love was not enough to turn him. If no one stands, the river will never stop, Izzana said, his voice low but unshaken. Would you have me watch more children starve? More mothers cry? More fathers hide their daughters? If this is stubbornness, then let me die with it. Ozimar's breath caught, torn between fear and admiration. Her hands trembled as she reached for his arm, but she pulled back quickly, hiding the longing in her heart. You don't understand, Izzana, she said, almost pleading. This spirit is not just hunger or anger. It is something worse. My mother told me once, before she died, that some curses are not meant to be broken by men. They are traps that eat even the brave. Izzana frowned, sensing there was more she wished to say. But Ozimar lowered her gaze, keeping her secret buried for now. For she alone knew the central twist of the tale. That the albino maiden of the river was not only a curse on the village. She was tied, in blood and destiny, to Ozimar herself. And if Izzana ventured into the water, he would not only face the monster of legend. He would uncover truths that could shatter the bond between them forever. It was the 6th day, and still the river gave no answer. Children's cries grew faint with hunger, lips cracked, and little bodies weakened until some could no longer rise from the earth. By dusk, 2 had already died. Their mothers wailed into the night, their grief joining the hollow silence that had swallowed Umuagu. The air smelled of despair, the kind that clings to the skin like smoke. On the 7th morning, the people gathered by the riverbank, gaunt and trembling. Their eyes were hollow from starvation, their hope as thin as their breath. The elders stood in a circle with the chief priest at the center, his body chalked in white, cowrie beads rattling around his neck. His voice broke the silence as he called upon the river in deep, guttural chants. And then it came. The river churned. Mist rose like a hand, curling around the chief priest. His eyes rolled back, his mouth opened, and a voice not his own thundered through him. 2 newborns. The crowd gasped. Mothers clutched their infants to their breasts, fathers stepped in front of their wives, shielding them as though their bodies alone could stop the demand. The voice continued, deeper, more merciless. 2 newborns, offered at the water's edge, or Umuagu shall drown in blood. When the river stilled, the priest collapsed to the sand, panting. The only sound that followed was weeping. Women clung to their babies, rocking them with frantic whispers. Not my child, not mine, please God, not mine. Some hid their infants beneath their wrappers, others ran into the bush, desperate to keep their little ones from being chosen. At the front of the crowd, a mother named Ifunanya fell to her knees, cradling her baby boy, born only 3 weeks ago. Tears streamed down her face as she cried out, "How long, elders? How many children must we bury before you admit this curse will never end?" Her husband gripped her shoulders, shaking with rage. "We are men. Are we cows to be led to slaughter? Must we feed our blood to the river until nothing is left?" Eldenkem's staff struck the ground. His voice was stern, but it quavered with fear. "This is not the time for rebellion. The river has spoken. Disobedience will bring death to us all." From the edge of the crowd, Izzana stepped forward. His eyes burned with fury, his voice carrying over the sobs and murmurs. "Death has already come. Look at our children, our wives, our brothers. We starve while the river feasts. We give and it takes again. How long before every home is empty? How long before there are no babies left to offer?" A heavy silence fell. The villagers turned to him, some with hope, others with terror. Speaking against the ritual was dangerous. But Izzana's voice did not waver. "I will not watch Umuagu destroy itself," he declared. "If the river wants answers, let it face me. I will go to it." A cry rose from the crowd. Some gasped in horror, others whispered his name with trembling reverence. And then Ozimar pushed through the people, her face pale, her eyes blazing with unshed tears. She grabbed his arm, her voice shaking with fury. "Izzana, stop this madness," she cried. "Do you think you are greater than the spirits? Do you think your blood is stronger than the curse?" Her hands gripped him tightly, but he did not pull away. He looked down at her, his jaw set, but his eyes softened for the first time that day. "If no one stands, Ozimar, then all of us will fall. I cannot sit and watch mothers bury their children while I still draw breath." Her lips parted, but no words came. She had always known he was stubborn, but this was something deeper, a fire that no fear could quench. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, only for him to hear. "You don't understand. If you go to that river, Izzana, it will not only take you. It will take everything I have left." Her words barely left her lips before Izzana's anger erupted like fire. His chest rose and fell, his fists clenched, and he turned from Ozimar to the gathered villagers, his voice thundering. "Enough. If the river must be feared, let it take me first. If there is truth in these legends, I will drag it from the depths myself." Before the elders could stop him, Izzana strode past the crowd, his heavy footsteps scattering sand beneath him. The people gasped, some shouting his name, others begging him to stop. Mothers clutched their children tighter, fathers shook their heads in disbelief. He reached the shore, seized a wooden boat, and shoved it into the current with all his strength. The waters slapped against its sides as though mocking him, but Izzana climbed in without hesitation. Izzana! Izzana! Ozimar's scream cut through the chaos, raw with desperation. She stumbled forward, falling to her knees on the wet sand, reaching for him though he was already drifting away. "Don't do this, please." But he did not look back. His eyes were fixed on the misty horizon, where the river widened into a vast, unknowable expanse. He gripped the oar, his muscles taut with fury, his spirit blazing brighter than his fear. The villagers watched in stunned silence. Some whispered prayers, others covered their faces, certain they were witnessing a man march to his death. Elden Kem raised his staff, trembling. "Madness! Madness will destroy us all," he cried. But even he did not step forward to stop the fisherman. The boat carried Izzana farther and farther until he was no more than a dark shape swallowed by the silver mist. The river seemed to close around him, its surface rippling as though it had been waiting for him all along. Ozimar remained kneeling on the sand, her sobs breaking the silence that clung to Umuagu. Her heart pounded with fear, but also with a truth she could no longer bury. Izzana was not only facing the spirit of the river, he was sailing into a destiny that tied back to her in ways he could never imagine. As Izzana sailed deeper into the river's breath, the mist began to shift slowly, deliberately revealing a silhouette ahead. Not a boat. Not a man. Something older than memory, waiting in silence.